often does a rap beef start because someone didn't like how another rapper feels about their album?
40, you sound amazing. 40 continues to progress. Drake, you do not. I said the other day on this podcast, I miss the Drake that starts the waves, not hops on other waves. And I'll say it again.
Jersey's own Joseph Anthony Budden II and Aubrey Drake Graham from Toronto, Canada have a bit of a rocky relationship. Before they had a rap beef that resulted in numerous shots being thrown back and forth, they actually were on pretty good terms with one another. In 2009, Drake made an appearance on Joe's YouTube channel. The video was posted on his channel in April 2009, only 2 months after the release of Drake's So Far Gone mixtape, which was critically acclaimed and featured the hit singles Best I Ever Had and Successful, featuring Trey Songz and Lil Wayne. Joe at this time was off his major record label deal with Def Jam and releasing music on independent label Amalgam Digital, like his third and fourth albums, Padded Room and Escape Room, which both released in 2009, as well as the self-titled debut album by the group Slaughterhouse. Drake was on an incline in his career and would soon become known as a superstar. In the conversation with Joe on his channel, Drake spoke about how he's a fan of Joe, which would definitely come into play later on.
Good situation.
I'm happy. I'm honored. I'm honored to be around you, man. This is the first time.
Yo, come on.
Okay, so I can't be honest on your network here. I can't be honest to your fans and say I'm honored to be around you. We all used to listen to you, so I don't need. You need to take. You need. That's what you need. You need to learn how to take compliments.
Over the years, Drake released albums like his debut, Thank Me Later, and his second, Take Care, which is considered a classic album by many. Then Nothing Was the Same in 2013, and so on. The tension between Drake and Joe rose in 2016 when Drake released the album Views in April. At this point, Joe was working on his Rage and the Machine album, which released later that year in October, and was his retirement album as he decided to focus on his podcast, which at the time was named Our Name This Podcast Later, rather than his rap career, both solo and with Slaughterhouse. On his podcast, Joe had some choice words about the album. He stated that Drake sounds uninspired and that the music sounds great, commending 40, Drake's friend, and one of the main producers, and said that he's progressing while Drake isn't.
I think that kid on that album that I heard sounds real fucking uninspired. That's what I think. I think that music is real good. You can't fool a real nigga. You can fool them. You can fool the people that are not paying attention. That music sounds good and I enjoy it. I played that album all the way to DC and all the way back multiple times. 40, you sound amazing. 40 continues to progress. Drake, you do not.
So basically, the beats are cool, but Drake's performance was not. This apparently rubbed Drake the wrong way, as in May, a snippet was posted online of Drake saying, "Pump, pump it up," which is a reference to Joe's hit single, Pump It Up. Then in June that year, Drake released the track 4 PM in Calabasas, which is a track in which he throws shots at Joe Budden and Diddy mainly. The Diddy lines are because of the altercation that they had over the beat for the song 0 to 100 released in 2014. On the song, Drake has the lines, "Look at me now, they look at me like the golden child, can't nobody hold me down, especially not right now, certain shit is just too wild to reconcile, take that, no love in their heart so they fake that, DiCaprio level the way they play that, damn nigga what is that, y'all don't hear no songs, they hit my phone like you did that, they even hit my line like where you been at, it's always on some shit like when can I get a favor or where my bitch at. Like I'm about to tell you where she been at, Costa Correa as I got her kidnapped. She ain't sorry and I ain't sorry, it's too late for sorry." On an episode of Joe's podcast, they made a reference to Drake being the golden child.
I think you are like the fucking golden child. I think you are so much greater than me. So much. Guess what though? You couldn't be greater without me. There's a whole line of MCs from last decade that laid their blood, sweat, and tears for the ground that y'all can walk today. Last decade, they told me I had to act a certain way and dress a certain way and record a certain way. I told them niggas suck my dick. Fuck your record label, nigga.
So based on that, these lines would appear to be a reference to Joe Budden. Also, Drake was seen on vacation with Joe's ex-girlfriend Tahiri back in 2013, so further reason for these lines to be aimed at Joe. There's also several references to Diddy here, like the "Can't Nobody Hold Me Down" line, which is the name of Diddy's debut single and was featured on his debut album No Way Out, as well as Drake making a reference to the group Total at the end of his verse, which is the group that was signed to Diddy's label Bad Boy Records. Joe Budden responded on social media with a tweet, and then in June released the first of his diss tracks aimed at Drake, Making a Murderer Part 1. The artwork for the track is an owl with a spurt of blood, which is a reference to Joe killing OVO, Drake's label, which has an owl for the logo. The first verse of the song is a setup for this extensive bar fest that Joe lays out for Drake. I'm right here per your request, now you stuck on them shoes. No alliances with me can still F him too. Before we start, to the fans, I'm uncomfortable too. Stuck in the booth, feeling like y'all cause I got love for the dude. But now my phone blowing up, they're like, what I'm gonna do? Show the world you shouldn't poke a man with nothing to lose. All of this just because I wasn't in love with his views. Whatever happened, I just know they got me fucking confused. With those lines, Joe makes it quite clear that this is aimed at Drake and makes a reference to Meek Mill, who Drake was beefing with at the time, as Meek took a shot at him because Joe said Meek's music is too hard for him to be soft and sappy because of his relationship with Nicki Minaj.
Yeah, part of my problem with that is that Meek's music is too hard. Meek's music is too hard for me to look at him with this fucking sappy fuck shit.
Yeah.
Like, be the hardcore guy that I'm sure she was attracted to at some point.
He then makes it quite clear that this is because Drake got upset that Joe criticized the Views album. After that first verse, Joe plays a clip from the conversation he had with Drake from the video on his YouTube channel, where Drake was saying that he's honored to be around Joe and that he's one of the best. Clearly a fan. This alone comes across as a big blow, either painting Drake as fake, who is dissing someone he looks up to, or a liar, as he might have just been saying that to Joe since he was on camera and in front of him. Either way, it's not a great look for Drake. This is reminiscent of how Nas dissed Jay-Z on Ether for being a big fan of his. Joe goes on in the second verse to diss Drake, starting the verse off with the lines, "Look, enough of the sentimental crap, cool if you into that, fuck all of these subs who they intended at, I won't believe it's me without forensic facts," which is a reference to the sentimental music that Drake was known for making at the time and the subliminal shots that he aimed at Joe on the 4 p.m. in Calabasas song. He makes a reference to Quentin Miller, who was outed as being a writer for Drake, and then goes on to call Drake his son with the lines, "I come around with every inch of the mag, I'm a wordsmith for real, you thought Quentin was bad, you made me proud lad, but it seems my child mad with all the clout that he grabbed is still doubts from his dad." Some would say that Joe and other rappers like him paved the way for artists like Drake to really achieve mainstream success. Joe was known to not be just a pretty lyrical rapper, but also one that often rapped about personal issues like his drug problems and relationships with women, just like Drake has done in his career. He disses Drake for taking subliminal shots instead of being direct, and even mentions Drake's beef with Kendrick with the lines, "You're so indirect, shit wasn't real clear, either Jimmy acting or he really missed a wheelchair. What he don't know is we the most kindred of souls. I shoulda did this 2 Kendricks ago." The Kendrick line most likely being a reference to the Control verse, which set off their beef, and the subliminal shots that went back and forth since then. Speaking of which, I covered the Kendrick and Drake beef recently on the channel, so if you haven't seen it yet, go check it out. He then has a double entendre later on in the second verse with the lines, "So how you calling out the lyrical god? Your face light up when you see me, talking miracle watts, cause your words ain't saying a thing. I kill a gram without weighing a thing, nigga you baiting a king." Miracle watts is a model who Drake mentioned in a song before, and of course a watt is a unit of measurement. In the third verse, Joe brings Jay-Z into the fray with the lines, "But since the OG's hoe, here's what I wanna know. If ain't no real niggas allowed, the fuck would I wanna go?" That's thinking back to Jay. Now let's get back to Drake. Both too big to respond to all I have to say. Still, with all their success and all their accolades, the universe makes it so they come right back to me. Here's a reminder that we go way back. I mean, for me the kid is practice. Hova, I make these words flip as if they practice yoga. Okay, practice over. Back to Blacklist Hova. Nothing personal. This Red Reddington, Sean. I don't work for you. Still, I'm doing the work for you. Payback. Wire his jaw. Reimbursing you. Metal all behind his face. Sprite commercial you. Joe had beef with Jay years prior, back when they were both on Def Jam. And Jay also has had subtle beef with Drake as well, on and off, as they've sent subliminal shots at one another and also appeared on songs together on each other's albums. On Jay-Z's Blueprint 3 album, Jay has the song Reminder, on which he sends a subliminal shot at Joe, and Drake is featured on the track off that. Then the next year, Jay was featured on the track Light Up from Drake's debut album Thank Me Later. He also, after this, wound up featuring on the song Talk Up from Drake's album Scorpion. The commercial line is a reference to when Drake was featured on a Sprite commercial back in 2009. In these lines, Joe is basically acknowledging his beef with Jay as well as his beef with Drake, and also acknowledging Jay as one of the greats. Since Jay never really went at Drake overtly, Joe was taking it upon himself to do so. So basically, Jay and Drake are sneak dissers and Joe is being direct. Joe continues on throwing punchline after punchline at Drake and ends the third verse with more double entendres. Might have made a mistake out of this one, can't Bell Biv DeVoe your way out of this one, nah, so warn your damn campaign that hammers rang. I just bought a new edition, you can't stand the rain. Y'all say this soft nigga hard and that, I can't explain, y'all think he's so for real, I see candy rain. So Aubrey, when you sub real MCs, you get murdered, and since you signed to 5 Guys, makes you a burger. Bell Biv DeVoe is a group formed by Ricky Bell, Michael Bivins, and Ronnie DeVoe from the group New Edition. So once again, Joe sending shots at Drake for his soft singing persona. Basically, he can't avoid Joe by just making R&B songs, he's gotta rap with him, which Drake just can't or won't do. Soul For Real is another R&B group, and they have a hit single titled Candy Rain, so more singing references. 5 Guys is a fast food restaurant chain, and it's a reference to how Drake is signed to multiple people. At the time, he was signed to Young Money, which was Wayne's imprint under Cash Money, which is under Republic Records, which is under Universal Music Group, or UMG. Drake, of course, is also signed to his own label, OVO, so yeah, 5 Guys. Not to mention whatever other deals he had going on at the time. After the third verse, Joe stopped rapping to speak about how when Drake got with his ex Tahiri, Joe just told him that it's cool and didn't have an issue with it, yet when Joe criticized Drake's album, Drake didn't just take it and had to say something about it, basically calling Drake a hypocrite or too sensitive. Then he goes into a fourth verse, continuing along the lines of Drake and his situations with women. He starts the verse off with the lines, "I'm from the school of pussy, don't get me punch drunk. Maybe it's different in the city you come from. Look, I'm from the school, these hoes belong to everybody. No celeb exempt, goes for everybody. So when I see you fuck shorty, not a bitter bone in me. I ain't think of how to handle the plans that I'm aware, have fun, understand that it's fam. Told that to you and not her, that's just the man that I am. My nigga, kids got no respect. Odd, cause you call me for the whole check on every hoe you check. That makes sense. Bad bitches, that's what Joe do best." Joe at times has been known for the women he has dated, which once again is another similarity he has with Drake. So basically, Joe is telling him that he's been with a lot of the women that Drake has been with, and letting us know that Drake has reached out to Joe about women to get his advice or opinion, as Joe was famous years before Drake and has experience with the dating scene in the industry a bit. Joe finishes the fourth verse with the lines, "Might have made a mistake out of this one. Days long, can't trace songs your way out of this one, so don't worry yourself. And before I go fuck a record label, I appear courtesy of myself, Joe." Once again making references to other R&B singers like BBD, New Edition, and Soul For Real, and also taking a shot again at Drake for being signed to multiple record labels. Not long after Joe released that track, battle rapper Hollow Da Don, who Joe had a battle rap against back in 2014, put out a diss track against Joe titled Making a Murderer Part 2. Obviously, it's named after Joe's diss track, and throughout the track, Hollow makes multiple mentions to the beef between Drake and Joe. About a week after releasing Making a Murderer Part 1, Joe put out another diss track to Drake titled Wake, following the naming starting with the first track after Joe lyrically murdered Drake. He's now issuing the Wake. To further drive the point home, he starts the first verse with the lines, my condolences, whole family in mourning, send my condolences, crazy, I just spoke to him. Later on in the verse, he makes a reference to Drake's beef with Pusha T with the lines, the passiveness in your manner, I might react to it, automatic shit, ratchet kids at your crib that can't even spell Calabasas, bitch, so I take all the guns, load half the clips, I just noticed you run, we mentioned half the clips, I'll say that for another time, I get back to it. This is a double entendre, as the Clips was a duo of Pusha T and his big brother Malice, now known as No Malice. Pusha T, being one of the members of course, is half the Clips, and a clip is also a part of a gun used to hold the ammo, so yeah. Joe continues on with plenty more wordplay for Drake. He disses Drake for switching up his accent and whatnot when he's around other people with the lines, say he Canadian, maybe Asian, Croatian, be sounding like his Jamaican friends depending on what state he in. As around this time, he released the tracks One Dance and Controller, which are both dancehall tracks. He calls out Drake for riding other people's waves to stay relevant with the lines, you leverage your celeb, taking waves over, that's territorial takeover, maybe he thinks nobody notices, Gucci wasn't home 2 seconds before you rode his dick, bodied Versace flows, copy that he stole, adios mio, sorry migos, adios amigo, was that your plot all along? Why you ain't do that vid with Fetty but you hopped on a song? No really, we want a party album, but you keep stealing all the parties album to go and put it on your party album. At this point, Drake was known for hopping on a bunch of songs by different artists. For example, using songs by The Weeknd for his album Take Care, or hopping on Migos' Versace song for the remix, or Fetty Wap's My Way track. It's become a running joke that the song becomes Drake's once he hops on it, and this is something he's done throughout his career, which has given some people the perspective that Drake is someone that uses people. He then goes on to mention fellow New Jersey rapper-producer Mike Zombie, who produced Drake's hit single Started From The Bottom with the lines, are you lifeless? Sounds like a zombie on the track. Remember Started From The Bottom? It was Zombie on the track. Know who else started from the bottom? Zombie on the track. How come after that joint I don't see Zombie on the track? I'm from Jersey, so Zombie, I got your back. Be alarmed, the real is finally back. Sometime after Started From The Bottom was released, a version with Mike Zombie rapping on it was put out, which had some believing that it was a reference track for Drake's version. Several times in Drake's career, reference tracks have been leaked, showing that he does indeed have writers. In these lines, Joe also questions where Mike Zombie is at since he produced one of Drake's biggest songs, but he apparently hadn't been heard from much since then. Once again, a reference to Drake using other artists for his own benefit and then leaving them out to dry. About a week or so after dropping Wake, Drake still hadn't responded, and Joe then released the aptly named track Afraid, mocking Drake for allegedly being afraid to respond. On top of that, the track samples the song The Resistance by Drake from his debut album Thank Me Later, one of my favorite songs from the album in fact. On the first verse, Joe breaks down Drake from the early parts of his career, like when he was on Degrassi and before he allegedly got cosmetic surgery with the lines, see some of us know you as Jimmy, barely old, he had the baby belly fro, nigga was trail up in his clothes, barely got a hold and it's seeming very out of control, wish we could go back and grab the Blackberry with the scroll, oh yeah Aubrey, that's the one we trusted, not this new Aubrey with his stomach sculpted. Drake is known for getting his start in the entertainment industry by being on the Canadian teen drama Degrassi as a teenager before he started putting out music, and the Blackberry line is a reference to an interview he had when he was asked to freestyle and he took out his phone and started scrolling through it to see what he had typed out. On the second verse, Joe continues to break down Drake's persona and again targets Drake with comparisons to Drake's beef with Pusha T and Meek Mill with the lines, so off the hook of me, maybe y'all should be shook of me, should know I'd kill him at even the slightest push of me, and when his team pressed up shirts, I'll help him push a T. Should it read, he pressed buttons but wouldn't push a T, gotta be bugging, maybe he don't know where push a be, or when push the agenda, he isn't push to see. If push to the streets, I see wood in your physique, thinking you misunderstood my hood, this isn't Meek, nigga. In Drake's beef with Pusha T, he hadn't really responded at this point. Later on in 2018, however, he would release the track Duppy Freestyle aimed at Push. However, in his beef with Meek, Drake took a much more direct approach and dissed him with the tracks Charged Up and Back to Back, along with several subliminal shots on other tracks. Here, Joe basically calls out Drake for not responding to Push and also claims that he's not as easy a target as Meek, however. He then ends the verse with the lines, This ain't a standard that you couldn't meet. Just from your views you couldn't see. That's cool. That kind of success you could never plan for it. Heard the question, nigga, I'ma help you answer it. That last line ties the song all together, as like I mentioned, the song samples The Resistance from Thank Me Later, and the chorus on that song has Drake questioning quite literally what is he afraid of. However, in that song is the question of fear of success and things changing in his life. In this track, Joe is using it to call Drake afraid of him, and the track goes on for over 2 minutes with the beat continuing to play, Drake continuously questioning what he's afraid of. Considering his lack of a response to this, the question could be answered with the name of Joe Budden. To me, this is one of the best diss tracks ever aimed at Drake, and if Joe were still signed to a major label, it might have gotten much more attention. Earlier that same day, the track No Shopping by French Montana featuring Drake was released. That is the track that had a snippet played that caused Joe to realize that Drake planned on taking a shot at him and caused him to release these diss tracks to begin with. Drake begins his verse with the lines, "Pump, pump, pump it up. She got a good head on her, but I pump it up. I'm not a one-hit wonder, they know all my stuff. You let me turn into the nigga that you almost was. I done seen a lot of shit and I done been in things before and I never started nothing, I just finished things." The Pump It Up line of course makes it quite clear that this is aimed at Joe, as his hit single is titled Pump It Up. He disses Joe for the fact that Joe never got to the level of success in the rap game that he has gotten, and disses him for being a one-hit wonder while he himself has several hits. Nothing heavy from Drake really though. Then later on in July, while on tour, Drake mentioned Joe Budden during one of his shows. He states he should have had Joe come out and perform Pump It Up, which is once again a jab at Joe for being a one-hit wonder.
We got that good energy going on. I should have brought Joe Budden up here and let him do Pump It Up one time tonight. Pump, pump it up. Fuck the niggas, man.
Shortly after this, Joe released a 4th diss track, this one titled Just Because. As the title says, I guess you could say his reason for putting out the track was just because. It samples the track Just Because I Love You by the Jackson 5. Joe yet again takes more shots at Drake for allegedly stealing his style from other artists with the lines, "I mean, I think I hear my part in your style. I can attach different acts to different parts of your style. Yeah, we let you act as if you had parts in your style. Nah, that's retarded. It couldn't be any farther out. But you really ain't shit about it, that's hard to doubt. Ain't bothered about it, you fathered your father's style, which makes you a grandfather. A clock I highly doubt. You a hybrid, credited with the art of it now, evolved with a style and redressed it in garments from now." Joe was probably one of the first people to really call out Drake on record for this kind of stuff. He ends the verse with the lines, "Now we not enemies, he just got a bar up now, I'm still on energy, let's see if he charged up now, and I'll be sure he's in the secret garden I found where lions, tigers, bears, Tahiri dolphins, wow." Charged Up is the name of the first diss track Drake put out against Meek Mill. Energy is the name of a track from If You're Reading This, It's Too Late. And The Secret Garden is a track by Quincy Jones featuring multiple singers including I'll Be Sure. So, more references to Drake's beef with Meek Mill, as well as him being a singer known for his sensitivity. Right around this time, Joe became a viral sensation because 2 apparent Drake fans ran up on Joe while he was in his car and they were recording it. Joe chased them down in his car and he called up to their car and confronted them, telling them that if they did it again, they would get hurt. Joe stopped putting out diss tracks after this and was focused on his podcast, which began to amass quite a following over the years, and he stopped putting out music in general after releasing Rage in the Machine in October 2016. The beef between Drake and Joe took a pause for a while, for the most part, besides some social media jabs. For example, in August 2019, Joe was hosting his annual pool party, which is something he's talked about on his podcast before, and he was on IG Live and Drake came in the comment section trolling. Then some months later, in April 2020, Joe was on IG Live and Drake joined the live to talk to him. They talked about doing an interview for his upcoming album and joked around, which would lead us to assume that the beef between the two was indeed squashed.
There we go. There's Mr. Tootsie Slide himself. Hold up. Let's give it a shot, man. Come on, you got to talk to more people than just Elliot.
Nah, yo, I can't do this with you right now.
Why?
Because I can't.
Because you're at the embassy?
Nah, I just like, I know where this is going to go. It's going to go left.
No, it's not.
Yo, why do you think that about me, man? We can have like a smooth talk. You do it with Tory Lanez and all your other fucking buddies.
It's gonna be bad for the brand right now. Oh,
but all the other OVO dudes kick it with me.
I know. Everybody fucks with you.
You're the only one that like avoids me for some strange reason.
Never avoid you. I just don't see you. We're never in the same place.
Because I'm too broke.
I didn't want to say.
You invited Elliot and B-Dot over there to the embassy. They got to see the Tootsie Slide exclusive. They got to hear Tupac in your bathroom, nigga.
Can I have another drink, please?
Look at this. You got a bartender there. Holy shit. Can I have a beverage? I'm parched. Get the fuck out of here.
Yo, go back to your live, man. I'm gonna talk. We have an interview to do for like when the album's ready. I don't want to do this right now.
You've been saying that for a year, and then now I have a whole leaked album with like 30 Drake joints.
That's old shit. That's not the new shit. Don't worry.
All right, fine. Enjoy yourself over there. I'm
gonna be in your comments though. Don't worry.
Yo, but let me ask you, why do you troll me this way? Honestly, like, you don't think it's hurtful to me?
Why? What do you mean? It's with an encouraging undertone.
Yeah, I'm hanging up, nigga. Bye.
Then in July 2022, Drake was on vacation and posted a video of the spot he was at as they were playing Pump It Up.
Where else, Joey, would you have him going so crazy?
Then the next year in October, Drake released the album For All the Dogs. Joe Budden on his podcast gave his opinion on the album, and just like with Views, Drake didn't like it. Joe stated that Drake is rapping for the children and that he's basically too old to be with these younger rappers.
This is like Yachty rapping. This is like he rapping for the children. And that's my, yo dog, I had to look up how old this was when I finished listening to the album. You are 36. Your birthday is in 20 days. I Googled that too. You only 37 years old. Get the away from some of these younger niggas and stop these 25-year-olds.
DJ Academics posted a clip from the podcast, and then Drake made a comment under the post going off on Joe for his comments. You have failed at music. You left it behind to do what you are doing in this clip because this is what actually pays your bills. For any artist watching this, just remember, you are watching a failure give their opinion on his idea of a recipe for success. A quitter give their opinion on how to achieve longevity. You switched careers because the things that pop into your brain had you broke, living check to check, and the raps you write had 450 men showing up to your shows in dusty and Nietzsche jeans to screw up their face to Mood Music 29 and pretend you are the GOAT. Please, to any artist that's doing what they feel is right, don't let these opinions affect your mindset after the fact. This guy is the poster child of frustration and surrendering. You retired and we never hung up your jersey. We don't even remember your number. We know you for doing this. You withdrew from rap, not because you accomplished all you need to, it's because it wasn't working for you. I never want anybody in the generations to think that the whole everybody's entitled to their opinion is a real thing. This is a man projecting his own self-hate and the fact I did and continue to do everything he wanted to do for himself. If you need it in simpler terms, I own a 767. He owns a modest house in the 973 and flies first class on special occasions. Joe replied with a comment of his own, simply stating, "You'll grow up sooner or later. Father Time is undefeated." Since then, things again quieted down between the two. Recently, Joe did speak on Drake again, however, on his podcast due to the beef between Drake and Kendrick, among others. On the podcast, they've talked about the various diss tracks released as well as other things like the mistakes they feel Drake made during the beef. Since then, the beef between the two has been quiet. It's probably obvious once again who won this rap beef. Lyrically, it clearly goes to Joe Budden, dropping 4 diss tracks over the course of a month or so, and Drake just sending a few shots on a track or two and jabs on social media. This is yet another rap beef featuring Drake that he just for whatever reason chose not to approach lyrically. I've covered Drake's beef with Common, Pusha T, Meek Mill, Kendrick Lamar, and now Joe Budden. And it seems like the general consensus is that the only one that he actually won lyrically is against Meek. All the others, he's essentially just won by popularity if anything, but this is hip hop and not a popularity contest. What do you think? Was Drake right in taking offense to Joe criticizing his album on the podcast? Was Drake a hypocrite to be offended by that when he's dated Joe's ex and Joe was fine with it? Did Joe say what he said on the podcast just to get attention? Let me know what you think in the comment section below. Click the thumbs up button if you liked the video, subscribe to the channel, follow on other platforms, and become a patron or channel member to support the channel further.